Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name's Kieran. I lead our digital operations and retail fulfillment at Mecca Brands. And today I'm here to host the Nora webinar, joined by some very wonderful people today. We have Tez Osman, coming from the CTO of Linen House. We have Ananda Iyer, the head of customer success at Annexa, and Tania Large, head of Industry Associations at ANZ, Oracle NetSuite. Today, we have a really great session, a session that I'm quite personally passionate about. I think it's got some really deep learnings and some deep messaging for all retailers in our industry. And the session is largely framed around as retailers scale across channels, the challenge isn't always growth. It's operational complexity and how that feeds into your business. Today, we're going to explore how Linen House moved from fragmented systems into a more unified operating foundation that enabled their scale. And it's a journey that I understand has taken over 10 years with some really key decisions on that journey. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Tez and the wider team on how that decision and what that platform has done for their business. Firstly, Tez, I think it's a really good opportunity to set the scene here and just talk a little bit through how Linen House went through that journey and how the business has evolved. So I'd like to just open up and give you the opportunity to start that story.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. I guess, Linen House was founded, somewhat 33 years ago. And at the very beginnings, it was homewares and bed linen wholesale business. And, Linen House used to deal strictly with, well, not strictly, but in general terms, with all of the majors like your Myers, your David Jones, your Harris Scarfs, and your big sort of retail businesses. And over that period of time, like I guess after about 10 or 15 years of that business operating, the change in landscape with some of our clients who did white labeled goods with us slowly started transitioning to, China and being able to manufacture the things themselves. At that time, Linen House was a brand also. We were operating a Linen House brand as well as doing some white labeled goods under that sort of wholesale market. But we discovered that, with the changes in business, we had to move to more of an omni-channel approach. So we very slowly, over a period of 10 to 15 years, transitioned away from wholesale only, and we are now involved in pretty much everything you can think of, from bricks and mortar retail. We have our own websites, both B2B and B2C. And we're also very active now on a lot of marketplaces and drop shipping as well. So as you can imagine, moving from wholesale only to now being an omni-channel business with being involved in pretty much everything. There's not just technology sort of challenges that come with that, but there's also channel conflict, channel challenges that also come in with it, because where you used to have wholesale businesses as your customers, you're now competing with them in interesting ways as well. So managing that is also challenging too. So that, as a high level, we've gone from wholesale to pretty much everything.
Was there a certain point in time, like an inflection point, where your business reached a point in your scale where the old operating model just wasn't no longer fit for purpose?
Yeah, absolutely, Kieran. I think once we started to move into that, let's start opening stores, and what does it look like to have a website, and how do we manage the content, and then obviously as different sort of stages of the business started to kick in, we found certain aspects of our system. This is pre NetSuite too, so obviously we're going back somewhat close to 10 years, I think. So previous to what we were sort of operating with NetSuite, we were with Sage Pack. It was, even though it was virtualized type of situation running in the cloud, it was still sort of call on premise, in that we were responsible for a whole bunch of the hardware and the infrastructure and the security around managing our ERP and fulfillment and operation systems. Once we started to onboard these new channels, integration just became, first of all, integration became a problem. So as we added a website, or we're opening new stores, or people coming to us about drop shipping, enabling those channels and developing them, as well as changes in the industry as well, it just became too much of an overhead, and it sort of distracted us away from trying to do the right things, which is get more customer engagement, try to do things better operationally, and have a better customer experience. But those challenges were tying us up, so that was the reason why we had to look at doing things a bit better.
I love that transparency and the complexity that you're describing there. One of the things I love to hear in these events is the vulnerability of what happens when it goes wrong, and also what went wrong. And so, as a bit of a follow-up, what broke first through that scale? What was the first canary in the coal mine, if you will, of the system starting to fracture?
Yeah, I would have to say, I do remember, conversations we had when, we were trying to open stores at a rapid speed. I think we had a goal of doing about, 8 to 10 in the 1 year. That was our goal. That's what we wanted to do. And then when we got to that position where it was taking us 2 weeks or more just to get the systems set up in order to turn on a retail location like that, there's got to be better ways than doing that. We can't scale doing it this way. And the more we added, the more sort of overhead that came with it. So we're just like, it's not going to be the right solution for us. It's not going to meet our requirements. So yeah, the stores were a big one. But then as we moved more into the online sort of e-commerce space, having these clunky systems with regards to then being able to do offers and marketing initiatives, we'd come up with these great ideas. The marketing team, very talented, they come up with these great ideas. And then when it come to us actually executing the mechanics of them behind the scenes, it just delayed everything. So speed to market, I guess, is what one of the terms I'm sort of looking at there. And we were not sort of operating at the level we needed to. So again, some of the big pain points we were having.
Yeah, these are pain points that I think a lot of retailers will be intimately familiar with as they grow and scale. So it's really relieving to hear the Linen House journey. As we go through some of those core operating challenges, what pushed you to rethink the systems and make such a big bet? So what were the moments there that you went through as an organization?
Kieran, for us, as these new channels were sort of, I guess, being onboarded as such, with our previous systems, we really discovered that, we needed a platform that was going to be the source of truth for all of our information, whether that be finance, whether that's inventory management, whether that's product lifecycle management, customer data management. We couldn't get, our vision was to see, omnichannel business who, has as much of an exciting customer journey across channels, so online, in store. The only way that we could sort of deliver on all of the things that we wanted to do was to get our source of truth right. And I think in previous conversations we've had about this topic, we've made NetSuite our source of truth. And our journey so far has been, NetSuite has been our source of truth for quite a few years now. We've had many satellite systems come and go. For our satellite systems, where I think we're onto our third website technology now. This is our second or third point of sale. And we've had many drop shippers come and go with all different types of connectivity requests and APIs and different sort of ways of doing business with us. So, for us, the way that we can now do some of the things that I've described to you around onboarding new marketing initiatives, onboarding new drop shippers, and exciting new ways of doing things, NetSuite doesn't change. We integrate that, which is our source of truth, and all our business rules then integrate out to these new solutions, new programs that we use. So I think that's really where we felt that we had to have that. Without that, we were lost. So we focused on that part.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. That's really fascinating. Ananda, I'd love to get you into the conversation. And
Yep.
firstly, I'd like to give you an opportunity to give a bit of an introduction to yourself and Annexa. And then also, once we go through that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective, given that you're exposed to many retailers. And I'd love to hear, after your introduction, a little bit about how common is this story?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kieran. And yeah, great to hear from you, Tez. It's been a great partnership over the last over 10 years. So Ananda, I head up customer success at Annexa. I've been in around NetSuite for about 10 years now, half of that working for NetSuite. So I've learnt the vendor side, and then the other half of that decade at Annexa, working and with our existing customers. We have over 180 customers now across ANZ that are my responsibility. So essentially anyone that's live leveraging NetSuite and their peripheral platforms, as we'll get into a bit later in the conversation. Annexa is a NetSuite solution provider. So NetSuite is a core ERP that we support, implement for our customers, and then support the platforms around that through integration services. So been going around for about 30 years now, starting with Sage, and as our customers grew, we found a home with NetSuite to support their longer term growth strategy, and of course moving towards cloud and more recently AI, which we'll get into. But yeah, in terms of I guess the commonalities within retails, they're all special in their own way, but we tend to find some key areas that come up, and Tez has just touched on a couple there, where they do need to transition to a different way of working to be more efficient to help scale. So the main one really is that fragmentation of systems. So a lot of retailers out there will be on a system that's now unsupported. Potentially it's not geared up to scale. You might need multiple versions of it, or you're on older versions, like I don't know, a MYOB or a Zero, and you're now moving international. You're now looking at more integration. So yeah, you need to look at your systems and start building that foundation for scale. So that's a really important part to enable that growth. Then you find your complexity tends to increase. So as you're growing revenue, your systems, your processes are really hard to bed down. You now start working with things like a 3PL. For your supply chain, EDI is becoming more common, and as Tez mentioned, that integration strategy becomes paramount, and that's really hard to do on older technology. And then finally, and Tez, you mentioned it there, which is great, it's getting data in the one place and then trusting that data, that single source of truth. So that really underpins everything. If you can trust the data, improve your reporting, that can help you make those key decisions. So yeah, they're the three key ones that come out that we've found.
It's really fascinating and interesting to hear that it's a reasonably common problem and problem set that many organizations face into. Um, so I'd like to hear a little bit from Tania. And Tania, same instruction. Let's do a little bit of an intro, who you are, where you're from, um, but also just similar sort of concept around, commonality of these types of concerns. And you see a lot of retailers. What separates the ones that successfully scale with this and the ones that don't?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. So yeah, look, I head up the Industry Association program for NetSuite Oracle in ANZ, and that's all about supporting industries. And Nora is obviously a key pillar for us, and it's really about how do we support retailers and also wholesale distributors, manufacturers, anybody that sort of moves into that online space. How do we support them through their journey through thought leadership and insights and awareness. My background is always been in technology, first in hardware and then in software, and I've been in the NetSuite ecosystem for 15 years. Worked on Ananda's side in the solution provider space. I've been heavily involved in a startup in the development space, and now with Oracle. So I've sort of been on all sides of the coin, if you like. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think what you were describing before, Kieran and Tez and Ananda, sort of just business holistic stuff when you're growing and you get to a point where you really need to scale and diversify. The natural thing is to look at an ERP or look at your technology. So how do we move from running on zero MYB and a sort of group of different systems that you've probably put in along the way, and in some ways to grow up into a technology footprint that's going to support your growth. And a lot of the time when you're running at things so quickly, it's difficult to make that decision. Listen, like Tez said, we have to get our foundations right. We've got to get our source of truth. It's a hard thing to do, to stop and say that is the highest priority right now. But putting in that operational excellence and making some of those investments and tough decisions early is what allows you then to scale. And I'd also say that in doing that, a lot of your ability to scale is around that visibility into, I guess, that finance-led decision making. So in retail, everyone's thinking about the customer and how do we engage our customers, but having that finance visibility, what is profitable, what is selling, what inventory is sitting there too long, how do we make sure we've got cash 3 months down the line, all of those sorts of things really start from having visibility across the business and your financial impact, and allows you to then pivot and make decisions. So that's really, really important, and consolidating and getting clean data and across your operations, no matter how many brands you've got, how many regions you're running in, how many channels. Linen House is a great example of kind of maximizing all channels. So, the utopia is having that kind of in one place so you can really have that true visibility of what's going on in the business.
I'm hearing a lot of themes on visibility and source of truth, and that's I've spent a lot of time in operations, and having operations teams and finance teams aligned on a single source of truth is very important. So it's really resonating with me there, Tania. Tez, back to you. I want to talk a little bit about like the day-to-day impact. So we hear a lot about some really broad statements around source of truth and finance systems and making sure that we're scaling and getting ready for complexity. But in terms of sharing with the audience today, what actually changed day to day? What was the real impact for the business in a day-to-day capacity?
Yeah, Kieran, look, just coming off what Tania just said before around that single source of truth, like we're probably going to hear that word a lot. And for us, once that sort of single source of truth was sort of enabled and connected with all of the different channels sort of feeding information back into databases and reports, which then are accessible for the whole team, like that's where you need to be, so that if we need to know about costings and profits and expenses for retail and for the web and for drop shipping and managing these channel conflicts sort of challenges, we need that information to be available to us very quickly and very accurately. Like if you need to sort of run off and tell a team to go and run a report for you to then give it to you a week later, that's too late. Like you need that information accessible to you in an accurate manner very quickly. And I think, if you go with that approach of having your source of truth that you trust, well, then that enables you to make all the sort of right business decisions in a timely manner to help you to execute on your business view goals and strategy. So day to day, it just means that we have confidence in the data that we have, and confidence, hopefully, that the decisions that we're making on that data is going to be the right things to do. And again, just touching on the channel conflict part as well, like again, a unique situation for Linen House in this is, you've got a customer that you've been trading with for a very long time, wholesale, where now, we have a website and we have a store that, is in a similar suburb to what they are. And, we've got a long running relationship. So we still want to be able to have a bunch of maybe, different offerings where we won't sell a particular product in that suburb, or we'll give them a discount or a different price so that they might be able to, have a first dib on a product. So we've got a lot of these other business rules that are engineered into NetSuite as well, as far as contract pricing and sort of putting some dates and restrictions around who can, buy what and when. So again, it's that source of truth. We rely on that source of truth for all of our business rules, all of our reporting, all of our information. So yeah, that's what changed day to day for us, just to have that confidence and that speed of access to information, and then also help us manage certain challenges around those channel conflicts that exist and exist still.
I love that tactical sense of making some really key decisions in a sort of hyper locality and very customer centric sort of optimization lens. So I really like hearing that. Now that you've got that foundation in place, you spoke a little bit about using a single source of truth and having that data to drive better business decisions. Once you had all this in place and the foundations were set, what did you keep focusing on, and what were the things that you did to keep improving operations now that was in?
Look, there's always changes happening, Kieran. So it's to think that where we're at today is definitely not where we're sort of, we can't sit on our hands. There's always something happening. Obviously we're still in the tail end of another implementation with our point of sale and with our website. So hopefully moving to Shopify for that in a very short near future. And with regards to our wholesale dropshipping relationships, there's always someone knocking on the door that wants to add new sort of features and new ways of doing fulfillment and better customer experiences for their customers on their website, who then transmit the order to us. So we're always in a state of change, right? So it's with many projects on the go all the time. And again, just falling back to that, as long as we keep our core system to where it needs to be, then we have that confidence that we can connect up different businesses to however they want to sort of do business with us, whether that's through the web or wholesale or other.
Sounds like it gives you some optionality for the future of whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
Just taking a quick pause, while we've got a little bit of time in between two parts of the segment here, I just wanted to invite anyone in the audience. There's a Q&A feature within the Zoom platform. And so if you've heard anything that you'd like to be expanded on a little bit more, or you've prompted a question that you'd like the panelists to put a little bit of words towards the end of our session, feel free to throw it into the Q&A and we'll curate some questions for the panel towards the end. So we'll keep moving on, but I wanted to just give that opportunity so we can start to think about which ones to address in which order. Ananda, just coming back to you, and again, you've worked with many, like I think you were saying, over 100 retailers that you've worked with in this capacity, and so you may have seen a lot of different cases and different use cases of what businesses do once they have this foundation set. What do you typically see retailers prioritize after deploying an ERP system like NetSuite?
Yeah, great. It's funny, we've got Tez talking through Linen House, and I feel like they've set the blueprint. So I'm not just copying everything Tez is saying, but certainly that initial journey, putting in NetSuite, we're finding that people are more comfortable to just get that base solution in, so you can get your day-to-day operations looking more efficient, rather than doing everything at once, because you can get a bit of fatigue through that project. And then really looking at, as you start to use it, identify areas to be more efficient, and that tends to be in that e-com space. And as Tez walked through with their journey, and I'm sure he'd say they made some other decisions they shouldn't have, but certainly on the surface, getting Magento in there and optimizing it for the business. But then, as he said, don't sit still. Look at what's next, and transition and improve. What are your consumers saying? What's the feedback like? How are they approaching your what you're providing and selling to them? So that journey from Magento, which has a lot of history and knowledge and and IP in there, and then transitioning to something like a Shopify is really interesting, and we're seeing a lot of that with our customers. And then as you start to use the different tech stacks, so if you've got a NetSuite, for example, as your core, you'll naturally start to see areas to improve. Again, if you're going with a more foundational approach, there's always going to be efficiency gained later down the track. So certainly improving your processes, introducing workflow, and then we've got amazing opportunities now with AI, and we'll touch on that a bit later to further optimize, automate, and then we did talk a little bit about integration. You're never going to get that right first time. There's always going to be additional data points that you just didn't think about, or as I said, you get feedback from others and you start to improve those integrations to make things more efficient. And then finally, as you've got that foundational process that you're comfortable with, your team is comfortable with, and adopting, it's that intelligence over the top. So that's the biggest struggle I see with retailers. You've just got data in all different areas, offline as well. You're trying to combine that all. Tez mentioned taking 5 days to get a simple report. I've heard 10 days, 20 days to close the books. It's getting that data in the right place, and then you're able to layer that intelligence over. And again, with AI available, which is my new best friend, be able to get those insights in a structured data set is unbelievable. The opportunities, the efficiencies it can gain. It's my first 3 icons on my desktop before I even get to NetSuite and all the others, because we've built those foundations as Linen House have.
Fantastic. And I think, yeah, to your point, not the first or last time we will hear AI in either this call or any industry call as we continue to explore that frontier.
Yeah.
Tania, very similar, your breadth of experience on all sides of the coin as you described. I'd love to hear a little bit about, what are the capabilities that define next-gen retailers?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think there's 3 words for me is adaptability, agility, and foresight. We've spoken a little bit, well, a lot actually about one version of the truth or a single source of truth. So I just really reflect that we are living in a constant cycle of uncertainty and change. So you really need to be prepared for anything and really try to mitigate risk wherever you can. And that starts with knowing your business and ideally knowing your business in real time and having that true visibility, which Tez spoke about. Having agility across channels and markets and your ability to diversify and respond to uncertainty quickly, especially with supply chain issues and price fluctuations. And, there's all sorts of things going on at the moment. But also in the space of automation. So what we're seeing is it's not just automation, but with AI, obviously, but the best retailers aren't really in the main hiring more people to do manual work. They're looking at how do we remove repetitive work so their teams can be more strategic and focus on customers and growth. The other thing is I spend a lot of time talking to people about AI, and especially at that sort of C-level. I think having, a next generation of leaders in this space is really having that openness to embracing AI as a leader and instilling a culture that supports growth and the development of young people's ideas, and sort of reflect like us oldies. We're not digital natives. We're learning AI as sort of what I would call pre-interneters. And Tez, you're probably the smartest person in the room, but the people within your business, within retail, with our millennials and below, they have a lot of great ideas. They're digital natives, they're faster and have more efficient ways of doing things. So really leaning into those opportunities with our young people, I think, is something that shouldn't be underestimated. And the other thing is rethinking who your customer really is. So we all agree that consumers want to have experiences, and we try to create that theatre, whether it's online through our commerce opportunities or in store. But I do think that retailers they need to start thinking about commerce strategies in the context of AI being your customer. And we're seeing that emerge with that shift between SEO and AEO, which I know we'll get into a bit of AI. We got to 30 minutes without talking about AI, so I think that's pretty solid.
No, it's fantastic, and it's a topic that's becoming more interesting with each passing week. Tez, I've got a couple for you now. I'm actually going to take one of the Q&As because it's highly relevant to this point of the conversation. In terms of Linen House's AI journey, did you take any steps to leverage AI or agents to increase productivity through this journey? And if so, was any of this at top of mind when you commenced the ERP project and what you would do with this data?
Look, I think, given that we've been on NetSuite for quite a few years now, I mean, the AI stuff that I'm personally seeing, the changes it's been the last 2 years, really. Like, I mean, if you think about where AI was when that first version of ChatGPT sort of dropped and wowed everyone, compared to where they're operating at the moment with, obviously Claude and again ChatGPT with some of their newer models like Fable 5. Yeah, look, I mean, Tania said we hadn't spoken about it yet, so we're going straight into it now with all of the AI speak that's happening. Yeah, look, it's incredible technology. Like we're like every other business out there is sort of looking at, we're hearing so much about, hey, look, it can do this, and look at. I think I've seen about 1,000 TikToks on look at the industry that AI is about to kill. Like that's the messaging now. Everyone's pretty sort of like, I want to say, both excited and nervous at the same time. But I can only comment on what's sort of happening with Linen House in our business at the moment, and how we're sort of treating AI. First of all, your standard tools like your Claudes and your ChatGPTs with our professional staff and other staff, they're already in the business. We've got company accounts for those things, and people are using those tools to better be more productive, do better searches, do better research. So yes, we do a lot of your standard tools there. We do a bit of automation work, or used to do a bit more of automation work around tools like N8N and other workflow automation tools. I wanted to add here too, when it comes to Linen House wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't have regular automation before all of this AI sort of talk came about. So we still use a hell of a lot of normal, your stock standard, if then else sort of technical automations. And I'll be honest, and I'll say that there are still some situations where that type of old school, if then else, technical automation works better than some AI things do. But fundamentally, we're trying to keep the view that with AI into our business, we're not rushing out to see what AI technologies are out there and then trying to find a spot for them in our business. We're sort of looking at it the other way around. We're trying to focus on what some of the areas that we're having the most challenges with, and then we might look outside to say, are there any AI services or AI technology out there to sort of fix a particular problem? So whether that's right or not, I don't know yet, because there's so much change happening. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, we've been with the ERP system for a while, but I think now moving forward with e-commerce, and I think there's some good points being made around, marketing and e-commerce is a huge thing going forward for us, especially with so much AI stuff out there. So we would definitely, it's on our radar. We're always looking into it, but with a view that we don't want to just apply it everywhere willy-nilly. We want to find an area of our business or things that we're struggling with that maybe AI could help with. So I think, yeah, that's our sort of thinking at the moment with it.
I do like that, and I've heard it framed as sometimes AI feels like a solution looking for a problem, and if you're taking that approach, it can be a little bit unproductive at times. But what you're describing sounds like the reverse is you've got a problem that you're going to try and find if AI is a solution for or not.
Yeah.
I really like that, and I see the same TikToks. It can be very hype inducing, and sometimes with a little bit of embellishment. But Tania, looking back to how we talk about AI in a retail setting, the reality can be very different to what we see in the hype and the marketing. And so I'm really keen to hear from you. What do you see across the market in this space in terms of separating the hype from reality, and who does it well, and what they do differently?
Yeah, it's a really big topic. I think there's lots of bright, shiny new toys out there, and it's easy to get distracted. But what Tez was saying, I totally agree with, which is to be measured, and focus on the boring things to get them right. The thing with, I suppose you're really seeing a lot of people playing with LLMs like Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, all of these different things, either in isolation, where it's looking at billions and billions of data sources, or if you do have an ERP like NetSuite, maybe you're starting to embed things like Claude through an MCP inside of your systems that's looking at your data. That's really where it starts to get interesting. But I do think don't be distracted by bright, shiny new toys. I think that it's important to think about AI in terms of and be quite measured about where you put that in. And I agree, don't underestimate automation in terms of what that can do for your business. AI is really the layer that sits over the top that's really going to give you anomaly detection, forecasting, reporting, spot things that a human maybe wouldn't. But I think the critical success factor with AI beyond sort of the toys is when we start talking about business systems and AI being embedded within your business systems, AI is only going to be as good as the data that it's looking at. And so if you've got a lot of chaotic data across multiple disconnected systems, AI is not going to perform well for you. It's going to give you construed views, or you'll have a lot of gaps in your data and what it's actually telling you. So you've got to get that bit right. You want the AI to be looking at your business as a whole of business. And that's where the master system is really important, because even if you've got e-commerce, you've got POS, you've got all these bits and pieces integrated, you all need that information to come into a central place so that the AI can actually do meaningful things for you. That's really, really important. And the other thing is, it's really obvious and boring, but cloud is table stakes now. If there's anybody out there sitting on old on-premise technology, that is the massive red flag. The first thing you'd be doing, forget about hype, go and do a tech check and prioritize sorting out your foundations before you even consider looking at shiny new toys, because the quality of your information and what AI can look at is important. So that's probably my key thoughts. We could probably spend a whole hour talking about that, Kieran, but yeah, that's my key takeaway for AI.
It seems like there's a very universal truth with not just AI but all systems. It's the quality of the data going in will dictate the quality of the data coming out. And I'm sure there's a more crass way of saying it, but
well, it's true, and I think you've got to have a human in the loop as well. Like even as we're now moving into agentic AI embedded within your ERP. So we're talking about digital resources that are sitting within your ERP. You still need to have the human in the loop so things don't get out of control. And what isn't talked about a lot is really with AI, making sure that you've got the right governance in your business and the right policies and procedures, and educating your people to make sure that you're not leaving yourself wide open to data breaches or doing things that are going to compromise the business.
No, definitely agree with you there. Ananda, going back and having a look at you described starting your day that you're opening up AI tools before you're opening up NetSuite now. Love to hear a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of real AI value in perhaps your day to day or how your clients are seeing it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that my parents had the foresight to give me the initials AI. That's been confusing when you're in a big room full of people. You think everyone's asking you something.
I've only just realised that, Ananda, but that's super
Yeah,
cool.
and it's funny, you get to see the maturity of someone when you join a call and you turn your video off and your initials are AI. They start freaking out. I don't know what it does on Teams, on Zoom, but on Teams it just says AI. There's big letters right in front of it. It's quite confronting, and it's a good way to it's a good icebreaker to shape the conversation because yeah, as Annexa, everything is AI led now. So it's in its simple capacity, recording meetings, getting the notes, getting to those actions really quickly. I mean, that's just your basics, but there's still people out there where that's banned. And I love what you're saying there, Tania. You've got to embrace certain elements of it very quickly, otherwise you're going to fall behind. And I get it. You still need to bed down your foundations in terms of your policies and how you're going to use it and how you're going to restrict or enable your staff. So that's really important to get that right. But where we're seeing, if we look at a retailer sense, firstly, there was the classic AI. So Tania touched on it. You're looking at, you've got your data sets and you're starting to touch on some workflow and some automation, finding patterns in the data, trying to drive outcomes before you almost know they're there. Finding exceptions. So NetSuite's great. It's already introduced a lot of these concepts. And the tools out there are getting better. They're learning ERP very quickly. Some are better than others. So I'd encourage everyone out there. I know you said, Tania, don't go after the shiny new toy, but I'd actually recommend doing that. Do it in a safe, controlled environment. Don't start dumping your IP in there or anything, but yeah, just start asking it questions to test its knowledge of your process because that's really important. You'll find some work better than others depending on what it's talking to. But yeah, that's kind of the journey everyone is kind of in and around. It's figuring out their data and how AI can help make decisions or identify things, summarize things really quickly for them. And then we're now moving to that agentic AI space. So Tania mentioned it there. So essentially you're building out your little team of worker bees to go out there, run processes, do automation, get your data, do something with it within a process. And I'm glad you mentioned it, Tania, but it's still really key that you've got that person there that knows the business, firstly, knows what the key outcome of that is, can step into any part of that journey to make the decision to move it forward. The scary or exciting part of AI is it can actually do that for you. So it can learn your business very quickly, learn your process, and essentially take care of that full end-to-end flow, depending on what you want it to do. So two examples we've worked through. So we actually launched an AI arm to Annexa called Erston. So that essentially is building out these agentic workflows. We're going through our beta program currently with some customers just to use real examples so then they can come and present on our behalf of the successes they've seen. So quick example, procurement agent. So that's looking at your supplier orders, doing that three-way match, reconciliation, updating in real time expected delivery dates. That seems so simple, but that's a very manual thing to do today to get that real-time visibility. And of course, flagging any issues, variances with the goods you've purchased versus what's come in to the warehouse. So that's a really simple one that we're working through. That use case, common use case in retail that needs to have a lot of hands in there, a lot of spreadsheets and data analysis to get right. But certainly with the advancements in agentic AI and automating that workflow, a lot of efficiencies to be gained in that space. And then the second one we're looking at on the sales side, so looking at that stock, that demand, breaking that down to that nth degree by size, color, style, making sure, I think Tez mentioned it, you don't have 100 things in stock that are just sitting there. It's actually, it's looking constantly at your demand, your back order, etc., any risks, and then making those decisions or providing that analysis for you to move it forward and go through that process. So in all of that, NetSuite, it's still key. You've got something like NetSuite, that's that foundational transaction of record. And then you'll very quickly see those benefits. So, you're going to get those efficiencies. You're going to get time back to work on other things, whether that be improving your tech stack, improvements in month end, so you can move on and start growing that business.
I love hearing a lot about the efficiency gain there. And one thing you did mention, though, was around that customer experience. And I think you specified it was around the EDD piece. It sounds simple, but it's customer facing and high impact in terms of your brand and your promise. And so, Tez, I wanted to just, poll maybe Linen House have an example around, AI tools that have helped enhance the customer experience.
Yeah, look, I think if I might just say, even before the question that was asked around, how is the AI used in the implementation of NetSuite? I mean, I think if that was around when we did ours, I think that project would look very different now, because our teams, and I focus a little bit more on what our e-commerce and sort of marketing teams are able to do with AI. I think that's where we're spending a lot of our time. I'm not going to say most, but there's a good amount of AI sort of tooling that we're using with that. They're using Claude a lot. We do have the NetSuite MCP or connector to our NetSuite instance. That's being used a lot as well. It's a really helpful tool. If someone hasn't used that yet, I would check that out and get that into have a play around with that, because for me personally, I've been using that tool a fair bit, and so a lot of our managers now too, just to be able to get information that they need and use natural language to sort of query information out of NetSuite. So that's definitely one of the tools that we're using. But 100%, like in project management, or if you're building any system out now, there's never been a better time to get your source of truth like NetSuite up to scratch with the help of AI. I'd be 1000% using it if I was in that position. So yeah, it's a very helpful tool across the board, and only getting better too.
It leads into sort of, as we look to address some of the Q&As shortly, we look at prioritizing AI opportunities, and you spoke a little bit about real impact versus hype, but you also spoke about correcting some of your data coming into a source of truth like NetSuite. Outside of that, if you had to prioritize AI opportunities for retailers over the next 12 months for a short-term sort of impact, what would it be? Where would you put your focus?
Kieran, I still think if you don't, again, I'm going to sound like I'm just saying the same things over and over again, but your source of truth has to be right. So if you're going to use AI, use AI to help you get your source of truth right, get your business rules right, get your structure right, get all of the the connectivity right. Like, you need without the source of truth. I guess, speaking from experience, if you don't have that, the rest of it becomes harder. So if you just want to focus on getting that source of truth correct, then I think that's where I'd be starting. So my advice would be just to get that correct.
Excellent.
Or as good as it can be. Like, obviously, to say where's correct, when can you put that to bed? Well, you can never put it to bed because things are always changing too. But at least if you have that confidence in it. If you've got the confidence in it, then I think that's where you should be. That's the place to start.
Excellent. And in terms of Q&A, I have a really juicy question that's come through, and I love it. And we've spoken so much about data. We've spoken so much about AI. We've spoken so much about systems. This question's about people. And so when we talk about challenges, what was the biggest challenge for an ERP migration project? And how did you get all the stakeholders in the business on board?
Look, obviously, we touched on all of the reasons why we had to move to it. I guess getting the stakeholders on board is pretty easy when you've got you're open and transparent around how and why things are taking so long to sort of do. So, they want to open a store and so why is it taking so long? Oh, it's because of this and because of this, and we don't have this. So, I think for me personally, we sort of had buy-in very early. Like we knew what we needed to do. The senior leadership team were support. They had a view of how quickly we needed to be able to operate and turn things into new stores, new channels, and that was the goal. It's like, well, how do we get to doing that? And that's what sort of led the search for the right technology. So yeah, it is. Yeah, and when you say finding the right people, that's challenging too, Kieran, because in a project like this, you generally the hardest thing in my area is you've got something where you're trying to run the business with this stuff that is required to keep the lights on, and then in parallel you have to sort of build the business as well. So there is a lot of challenges around that. But you need both. You need the skills and expertise of the people that are running things day to day, but you need them also to be involved in, they've got very specific subject matter expertise in things too. So it is challenging. At the end of the day, you need to resource it correctly so that you give the project like a NetSuite or ERP implementation the quite effort it needs to get it done properly. But it's not easy. I'll say that it takes time, but the work that you put in for it, you will reap the rewards of that for years to come afterwards. I'm certain of that.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you. As we look to
I'll
come
probably add,
towards, sorry,
I was
go
just going to
ahead.
say, Kieran, I'll just add to that. Just don't underestimate that need for focus on change management. It tends to be that first part of the budget that's cut, thinking that such and such will take care of that, or my partner will take care of that. But just make sure someone is actually owning it, not assuming that change management is just going to happen. You need some key processes to be followed. Identify champions to own that conversation to drive the awareness and adoption of what's changing. Because yeah, the people are the most important part. The technology is the technology, and with AI, things can happen a lot faster, and you can even miss things, and it'll tell you you've missed it before you go down the road, get live, and mistakes happen. So yeah, that to me is a really important part um, to focus on and provide budget towards if you're going on this journey.
Yeah, very, very important and to your point, often overlooked. As we move towards the end of our session today, looking for some closing remarks with the prompt of what's the single most important foundation retailers need to get right to scale successfully? And so, Tania, perhaps we'll start with yourself. Closing remarks. What are the things that we need to get right?
Well, we've talked a lot about foundations, but I think just thinking in terms of solving business problems, and Tez touched on it a little bit. It's sort of do those things in a measured way where you can quantify the outcome and okay, well, if we go and do X, Y, Z, then we know this is going to solve a problem for the business and the outcome will be A, B, C, and we know that's going to have a tangible outcome. So I think thinking in terms of solving business problems is a really important aspect to scaling. And yeah, I think just thinking through who your customers are and really one of the things I see a lot at the moment is CEOs coming up to me and asking where to start. And I think just don't put your head in the sand with technology or with AI, is really start to play with it and think about how you could use that to solve some of those business problems, but do it in a measured way, and always be grounded in get the foundations right. Think about and don't overlook operational excellence and governance and things, because those things do stand you in good stead. It's like I always try to think in my personal life is look after the future of yourself, your future version of yourself or the future version of your business. Think in those terms, because what you do now today affects how you respond to things in the future.
Well said. Ananda, final remarks?
Yeah, I've always liked, and Linen House is a good example where you don't do everything at once. A lot of people look at what they're doing today and think they need to replicate that, or if I don't have that in this new world, everything's going to fall over. It's don't think that way. Be confident that the decision's been made on better technology that's going to help you do your job and be more efficient. And there's always going to be compromises, but as we've touched on, the foundation is there to grow. There's always a business strategy behind it. It's not always a day-to-day task. So just have the right mindset, I would say, would be my recommendation going to these sort of things. And then by not going after everything at once, AI is every day there's something new that's coming up that we can do in a way better way. So again, yeah, think about your where you want to be in 12 months, 18 months time. It doesn't have to always be a technology to solve the problem, because there's still things to be developed. So yeah, work on getting those foundations right, and when the technology catches up, then you're ready. You're not over fatiguing your team with additional changes and not bedding down key process areas. So that would be my recommendation. I talked to way too many customers today who went for everything. 4 or 5 years ago, they're coming up to that point now where teams have changed, knowledge has walked out the door, and you haven't left enough room to kind of build and grow and use the technology it is today. You've got legacy processes you need to rip out. And many of these went to NetSuite. So great decision to start with, but then just didn't strategize that growth to match the business outcomes. And yeah, happy to chat through that in more detail and tailor it to what you're experiencing today. But that would be my view.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Tez, closing remarks for the session. Thank you very much for your time, firstly. But in terms of words of wisdom to leave us on, how would you close this out for us?
Look, thanks again, Kieran. Thanks, everybody. I think just to close out, I agree with both what Tania and Ananda said. Like, I think that the advice that they gave is spot on in terms of, the business know where the problem is. You just need to look at the problem and go try to find the solution rather than look at the shiny new object and trying to bring that in and find a home for it there. The second part, I guess, is relating more with Ananda and his team. I couldn't have done a lot of the things that we've done that I'm speaking to you about here, taking all the credit for it. I couldn't have done that without Annexa's help as well. So I think bringing in the right people to do some work with you and to go on the journey with you to help you solve those problems is the other part too. Like I couldn't have done this by myself, and I rely on Annexa's help. And their wisdom on a variety of different things. And they've mentioned that they're working on that Erston AI sort of capability. I'm one of their guys they're working on that with at the moment. So you need to have the right partners too. So I think at the end of the day, if you need to look at the problems you've got, find either technology solutions to help you solve them or together with the right partners and experts in that area. So that would be what I would say.
Fantastic. So Tania, Ananda, Tez, thank you for your time. It's been incredibly generous with your time and knowledge today. I've certainly come away with some learnings from today, and I hope our audience have as well. In terms of strong thematics, I think there's been some really key messages that have come out of today, and I hope that everyone has found them valuable. The key ones for me is I've come away with a very good sense of these systems required for foundation of success for scaling businesses, require great data going in. AI can help make that data better. AI can help use that data. But in terms of having that solid single source of truth seems to be the key for scaling these business requirements. And so thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom on that today.
No problem. Thanks, Kieran.
Thank you,
Kieran,
Kieran.
thanks for the
Thanks,
opportunity.
everyone.
Thanks, Tez and Tania.